Here's a list of 5 people I almost got hired at Barstool. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Rone. I've been working at Barstool almost 10 years, and one of my greatest accomplishments here is bringing in $1 million worth of game. I'd love for you guys to kind of tell the story of how you wound up at Barstool, how you wound up.
You told him about his Rone stuff.
That's why I wanted you to tell the story.
You want us to stroke his motherfucker.
A couple bits of clarification. These are only people that I personally tried to bring aboard. So this doesn't include like situations like KFC trying to bring in Jesus and Miro or Big Cat trying to bring in the people from Cumtown. Another stipulation is there has to have been some progress made. So not just the idea of bringing these people in, we have to actually have gotten closer to bringing them into Barstool. Let's get into the list. Number 1 on the list, Joe Budden. Around 2017, Joe Budden was ending his show with academics called Everyday Struggle. I was actively looking to bring someone into Barstool to fill the music role that eventually got filled by Wallow and Gilly. So I didn't know Joe Budden personally, but I had mutual connections to him through the battle rap world. A manager was listed on his socials, so I reached out to his manager and they were immediately interested. So I set up a meeting with our then CEO, Erica Nardini. On the day of the meeting, I distinctly remember going down to the lobby, getting Joe and his manager and bringing them up to Erica's office, and I was positive that a big money deal was going to get made. Alas, by May of 2018, Joe signed with Diddy's company Revolt and my efforts were dashed. But can you imagine Budden under the Barstool umbrella? It would have made huge waves. Number 2, CM Punk. I met CM Punk on my friend Jensen's star-studded bachelor party. That bachelor party also included appearances from Paul Scheer and John Mayer. At that bachelor party, I even had CM Punk sign a napkin for then co-worker Jared Carabas, who later got the contents of that signed napkin tattooed on his right shoulder. Anyway, a few years later, Jensen and I were talking about how sick it would be for us to host a podcast from one of the biggest names in wrestling history. I brought that idea to Dave, but nothing materialized at the time. Flash forward to December 23, and talks were picking up steam again as it seemed like CM Punk was, once again, shopping his podcast. This time, Big Cat was also involved and meetings were set up and we were talking about revenue shares and what would happen with merchandise. But once again, things fell through and nothing fully materialized. So Barstool was left with only one star wrestling podcast called Wrastlin' with Brandon Walker. Number 3, Shane Gillis. Obviously, everybody loves Shane Gillis. He's been on a ton of Barstool podcasts, from Blind Mike's podcast to PMT to KFC Radio to The Yak to Son of a Boy Dad. So it's not exactly an innovative idea to say we should bring in Shane Gillis. I mean, he was even at one of our company meetings one year, but the specifics of this one are interesting. Shane and I knew each other through a mutual friend named Matt Letty, who played football at Elon with Shane and went to high school with me. So Shane and I met at a Patrice O'Neal benefit, and a couple years later, he breached the idea to me of the Barstool Sportsbook either sponsoring or partnering with his pod, Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast. There were other gambling partners that were reaching out to him, but he said he would rather do the deal with us. So I brought this idea to Dave, but with the caveat that Barstool doesn't necessarily advertise on other platforms, but rather Barstool is the advertising wing of the Barstool Sportsbook / Penn Casinos. I even suggested an ambassadorship like the ones that Barstool was in at the time with Nick Merckx and with Logan Paul. I passed the convo off to Dave, who seemed to agree with the idea that Barstool doesn't advertise outside of Barstool and that we kind of are the advertising wing of the casinos, and Shane went on to be the biggest comedian in the world. Number 4, Freddy Gibbs. This is an interesting one. A friend of mine from Philly named Ness saw the success that $1 million worth of game was having with Barstool, and he thought that Freddy Gibbs would be a perfect fit. At the time, Gibbs was dominating in the Instagram world with this irreverent, lewd humor that would have been perfect for Barstool. I entered into talks with Gibbs manager Lambo, and things really started to progress in the right direction. The fit made sense, but Gibbs had never done a podcast before, and we needed some kind of pilot, some kind of proof of concept. So I was gung-ho to make this happen, so I immediately hopped on a plane to LA with a film crew to film a pilot. After a day of waiting at Freddy Gibbs's house, we finally filmed this pilot, and I think we made what was a good pilot. And it was like him talking about a slew of different topics like sports, hip hop, lifestyle, culture on camera, while I kind of fed him topics off camera. We got back to New York, and Dave seemed like he was close to locking in this deal. But it turns out that the day that Dave was almost locking this in was also a day where he filmed a pizza review where he and the owner of a specific pizza joint sat outside in New York and drank like 3 bottles of wine. So on that day, Dave's vision might have been a bit clouded. Ultimately, there was too much of an overlap in subject matter with $1 million worth of game, and the workflow couldn't be completely figured out, and it wound up not happening. The 5th one, Pat Stay. This one is a heartbreaking one. I tried to get Pat Stay a job at Barstool like 3 different times because his wit, his charm, his sense of humor are perfect for Barstool. I also think that battle rappers are the perfect content creators because they write, produce, and perform all of their own material, which makes them tailor-made for creating stuff on the internet. So after a couple tries of getting him hired here, we brought Pat Stay out to New York to film a show called The Nicest, which was all compliment battles. The day after he came to the battles, he came to the office and recorded Son of a Boy Dad. After that, I told him that I would introduce him to Dave, so he introduced himself to Dave. They had a short meeting, but as he walked into Dave's office, a guy named Devlin noticed him because Pat, 6'6", tattoos on his head, 240 pounds, and he was like, this guy will be perfect for Rough and Rowdy, our boxing competition. So we were like, perfect, let's set him up in Rough and Rowdy. Pat was all about it, and he even was close to having a fight set up against The Game, which is why he made his famous diss track of The Game. Sadly, just a couple months after the meeting and before the fight, Pat Stay was killed in Nova Scotia. So rest in peace to my brother Pat Stay. Long live Pat Stay. And I'm sure that there are other people that I tried to get hired at Barstool. Can't think of them right now, but once I do, there'll be a part 2.